Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, a channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and today we're looking at the newest expansion for Concordia, Roma and Sicily. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at what you get in this new expansion, and then we'll talk about what I think about it. So on the Sicily side of the map, you have, for decorative purposes only, this volcano token, which goes here. And the volcano is only going to affect these three regions. And essentially, as the volcanic activity increases, ash is going to fall in these regions, and it's going to have a variety of effects. And that is to, first it's going to be nothing, just a little warning, then it's going to slow production, and then you're not going to be able to build there, and then it's going to cease production altogether as nobody wants to work when lava and ash is everywhere. And so the first thing you'll notice about this board, however, other than that, is the fact that there are no A's. So it's a very small map, a lot less places to build. And you'll notice that the regions that this effects are here as well, noted here. And essentially what's going to happen is, at the beginning of the game, you're going to seed this area here, this volcano area here, with some of these tokens. And then anytime anyone plays the Tribune card, you're going to go ahead and put more tokens here. So it's going to change for the number of players, but in this case, if you're playing like a two-player game, you'll initially seed it with 3, and you'll see there's different items here. In a two-player game, you would have removed these bonus tiles. So you would maybe have drawn these 3, and you'll do it one at a time. And you'll draw the first one, and it'll go there. As you see, it's color-coded here. The next one you draw would go here, and you would take this piece here, and you would put it right here to show, hey, production is decreased. And then when you get to the bottom, if you get to this level, you would put this here. Of course, each of the regions has its own thing going on, so these would be the tokens for that, and then there's one for wine as well. When you reveal one of these, before you place it, players will be able to get the a wine or tool, or a grain, depending on which one of these tokens it is. If you don't have room on it, like anytime, you don't get to take advantage of that benefit. So you want to be prepared. And essentially, otherwise, it's the exact same. When you're building, you just have to be careful, because at some point, you're not going to be able to produce there, or you're not going to be able to build there. So if you're going for certain goals and things, that's going to be affected by that. One last thing I forgot to mention, actually, is it does come with a full new set of these tiles. They have rounded corners, so it's easy to separate them from your regular stock. And they go here just like normal. However, the difference is that on the back, they all have an additional coin. So if you were to compare this with the base game, you'll see that it has an additional coin. And so the coin here and the extra goods here are sort of meant to help you, what you're losing by having those regions be constrained. Okay, so now let's take a look at the Roma side. As you can see, very similar here, but the most important thing is going to be at the bottom here. This is the biggest thing here. Now, one other thing you'll notice about this map is that it is also very small comparatively. There are no D's in this, and then it just shows the letters here rather than on the board itself. On the board itself, it has this very beautiful art. However, as soon as you put your building tiles here, you can't see these images, which is a real shame, because it's very lovely and obviously evocative of the theme. So that aside, again, this is just cosmetic, and then this is just as normal. The big difference here is that you have this boat track. And essentially, when you have a ship here, as a colonist, you are going to, anytime you move, you can move your ships. Your ships are not going to be on the board as normal, but your ships will move along this track. And you'll move as far as you want to, essentially. So you could move every single one of these spaces, and when you enter one of these spaces, you'll get this good, as long as you stop there. So you might decide just to move straight to the end, or you might decide to stop and get all the goods along the ways. If you stop at Carthage or Athens, you'll have a chance to build one of these. You can't build multiples, but these do count for scoring for Saturn. So those are very useful. And of course, when you use your specialist card, if you have a specialist card, then you'll get to trigger this, as well as any of the wine that you have on the board, or the cloth, or whatever specialist that you have. And so that it just shows you like the route that they would take for trade and stuff like that, the Romans would. And then again, so you can have multiple ships on here and they can all be kind of moving along. If you play the solitary version, he'll just skip to these other spots, and he'll build on various difficulties and stuff. But the main important thing about this track that you might want to shoot to the end for is because when you get to the end of the track, you'll put your ship on one of these spaces, and you'll score that goal as if you would at the end of the game. However, you'll just score as like you do the intermediate scoring. So you would score whatever points you're going to get just then, and then any player after you is going to, if you took Jupiter and they want to take Jupiter, if they take Jupiter, they're going to get a lesser reward than you did. And you can only have one ship on each of these different gods, but essentially you could put you have 3 ships, so you could actually cover up 3 of these if you wanted to. So this track is kind of the main point of this expansion. So the other thing is, just one other quick thing, your colonists they start in this area here, and they'll get a chance to enter the city whichever way they want to. And so it's actually quite laborsome to move in, but you do get the choice of where you're going to move. So if you were to want to move to this area here, you'd have to go 1, 2. If you wanted to move to this area here, you'd have to go 1, 2. And these via Appia, a very famous way here, so they have historical significance, of course. Then you have a little more flexibility with this one here, because you'll go 1, 2. Let's see, 1, 2. Yeah, so you have three different spots that you can go to here. So you can enter the city from different ways. It's kind of a little more interesting than the base game. But that's essentially that expansion. Okay, so let's talk about it a little bit. Sicily, I was skeptical at first because it sounded like maybe a bit much, this volcano going. I know there's a lot of other games like Pompeii, etc., that can be maybe a little chaotic, but it actually isn't chaotic at all. It's kind of interesting, actually, because you are getting extra money when you do the production, but you flip the coins, and you are able to get some extra goods when the volcano goes off. And you can fully control that because of when you pull up your tribune. So it depends on when you want to do that. Now, if you build, so the hard part of it though is that you have to decide when to build, and that requires an extra layer of strategy, which is kind of interesting. And it's a little bit of push your luck, which isn't generally involved in Concordia, but this is kind of an interesting little part, because if you want to get a god like Saturn and you want to score a lot for all the provinces, then you'll want to build in those 3 provinces. But you have to build early, otherwise you might miss out on your chance. But if you build early and you want to get your engine going and those get covered up or the production gets dampened, then you'll be less likely to get your engine going and get the benefit of having built in those cities. So it's kind of interesting. And then sometimes you might have built, I didn't mention this in the other part, but you have to kind of go all the way around the map with the ships, and so it's kind of hard to build in certain areas. And then it kind of forces you, if you want to build in, if your colonist is in a bad spot, you're tempted to build fewer colonists because it's such a tight map, but also at the same time, you have to be able to, those regions are going to become dead regions, and it can kind of constrain your movement in a way. You can still move through them, but you can't just move and then build because there's nothing there. You can't build there. There's just volcanic ash. So I thought that was kind of neat. Again, both sides of this map are very tight. One has no A's, one has no D's. So that can create a much more kind of heads up, claustrophobic type of feel. So I really like that. But I do like the push-pull a little bit by constraining you in one area, but kind of giving you some extra bonuses in the other. Actually ended up being kind of a cool little expansion, and I do really love the theme. I visited Sicily. I really like when I see areas that I've been to. That's one of my kind of things that I always like about gaming and stuff. And then in addition to that, the idea that, the eruption and stuff, that's always very, very fascinating. And some games handle it in a major way, but you don't really see too much of that in gaming. So it was kind of interesting to see how they dealt with that and still made it be a strategic thing and not, I think each of these expansions, and especially this one, really shakes up a couple different areas. So moving into Roma, I like the fact that they took advantage, look, you're going to do different things with your ships than you are with your colonists, and you can decide what you want to do, and you can kind of enter the city from different ways. And so I think that this expansion does a good job of keeping things a little fresh. Obviously, the big expansion, Salsa, brought in the salt and all this other kind of thing. And that's really a lot, but each of these maps you can't, you want just a little bit of variety and a little bit of a difference, and I think they both kind of push the game in different directions, so they provide a good variety there. The Roma map, I do really like that kind of, it's in a lot of games like that Francis Drake type thing it was in years ago, where you kind of like, you can go all the way, and pick whatever you want, but you can't ever go backwards. And once you reach the end, you can't come back. But you also maybe want to get to the end really fast and take one of those spots so that you can score really well from it. But then you might not score that well as you might want to, because it's just whatever you're scoring, what you're scoring then. The only thing I don't like about the Roma side is the fact that, like, there's a couple things actually, because I really like it. I do like it, but it's a little weaker in terms of the rest of them. Not on paper. On paper it looks amazing, but playing it, I'm kind of like, you don't get to move that much in the game, there's very rare, and you want to be moving around the map and building houses, and things, so you have to be doing that, and so taking your movement to move your ships all along this bottom board, there is some benefit to doing so, but the idea of like stopping a lot is just really not possible. I kind of wanted to say, I'm going to play completely differently, and instead of building mostly you build the colonists, I tend to, but I'm like, if I just built up a bunch of ships, but, they move so slowly down the board and the benefits are so slight that you really kind of push the rest of the game forward playing, your traditional way or a variation on that. So it wasn't quite as exciting. And just as like a little nitpick, but it's like they have this beautiful art on it. And unfortunately, it's like, where's the, they get covered up, and so you don't get to see that. And so that's a little bit of a bummer. I guess there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, it's very lovely. And the other thing is that when the board orientation, this is, like I said, this is a nitpick. I like it when it's horizontal. It seems like the way the game is set up, it makes it a little easier when the board is horizontal to sit across, or what, I don't know, this like that layout kind of like bugs me a little bit. But that's kind of, like I said, like a little bit of a nitpick. Again, both of them shake up the game pretty well. It's an inexpensive map pack or whatever, and it provides some nice extra stuff. I haven't had a chance. There's so much now for this. I've got all of it, and I've really enjoyed all of it. And I haven't had a chance to try some of the different expansions with it, so I don't know how much that shakes up. But on its own, if you just bought this without any others, I don't think this would definitely wouldn't be my first expansion for Concordia. Maybe I'll do like a little ranking at some point. But for those seasoned players or somebody just that wants a little bit not too crazy of an expansion that just kind of like changes a few things, it's a really solid one, and I enjoyed it. So hopefully that helps you decide whether or not this is for you. But for now, I gotta roll.